Okay, this is my interview with Janet Phelan, author of Hitler Comes, November 2005, author of Exile, May 2014, author of Held Captive, April 2016, and soon to be published, Bioweapons, at the Breaking Point of History. How are you doing, Janet?
I'm doing all right, and thank you very much for asking. Life is full of surprises these days, but as one gets older, one begins to develop one's sea legs and kind of rolls with punches. So thanks for asking. I'm okay.
Anytime, right on. You just let me know what happened with the car deal. Pretty wild. I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah, I was actually in an accident on the way. My fault. I was in a taxi cab. Yeah, I'm okay.
Cheers. So how's the new year been? The whole COVID, considering your background and stuff, is it going good?
We're in a lot of trouble, and the agenda, the narrative that is being forced down our throats and is playing out is really not in our best interest. And yet there seem to be so many people who seem to be almost hypnotized by the narrative and by what's happening and by their feelings of necessity to lie. And that is very scary to me.
Yeah, definitely pretty weird. There's so much to talk about that goes into those conversations. Ultimately, I wish everyone the best, and I hope everything goes good for the entire universe. So COVID-19 is one of the hottest topics at the moment. In the world we live in, viruses aren't a daily topic in the public domain. A lot of media has been reporting on COVID-19, and there's been extreme backlash all over the world, as well as propaganda, and this is in a positive and negative manner. What are some of the major outputs you've seen in regards to COVID-19?
Some of the major what? I'm sorry.
Outputs, what has COVID-19 brought into the world?
It's brought into the world fear, conformity, isolation. It has brought into the world economic devastation, illness, and death. But possibly not, all those things are being reported in ways that are meant to either pacify us or to alarm us. And I think that it is necessary at this point in time to really question what COVID-19 is and where it came from, what it actually does to people, and what the global response has been to it.
Thank you. From your background, you definitely, I've researched it a lot, you've studied a lot, and I'm definitely very grateful for it. What is the biggest impact you think COVID-19 has made in regards to countries?
Well, my concern here is that we have an illness as a reported fatality rate of less than 1%. And based on these minuscule numbers, we are seeing essentially the end of the world as we know it. The restrictions, the lockdowns, the mandates, the people's inability to work, people's inability to communicate in person with other people, inability to go to church and worship. All of this has been launched for an illness that has less than 1%, and this in itself is very alarming. There has been recent disclosures, and actually I was able to write an article concerning this, that the mask mandate is now to be looked at with some suspicion due to the fact that so many of the masks that are being sold contain graphene. graphene has a similar effect upon being breathed in. And of course, you do breathe in when you're wearing a graphene mask, you will be breathing in graphene. It has a similar effect to asbestos. So people are being told to wear masks, but so many of them, not all of them, but so many of them have been found to contain this nanotechnology called graphene that is hazardous to your health. So while we are lining up, generally speaking, people are just lining up to do what they're told, to wear masks, to take vaccines that are not even FDA approved, that are considered experimental. All of these factors are actually alarming, and I believe may be extremely hazardous to our health, collectively, individually.
It's craziest stuff. Holy moly. Do you think the pandemic will be over anytime soon?
Pandemic is very useful. It is a launching pad to essentially reshape the world, reset the world, and as long as we are as obedient as we appear, as long as we comply the demands, mandates being placed upon us, I believe that stay in a scenario. Possibly there'll be another pandemic. Possibly they will announce that the virus has resolved, and they're already talking. Already talking about what the next pandemic is going to look like. So we're in a global health crisis that is going to have world-changing effects, which may not be may be certainly in the interest of those who are in charge of our.
Yeah, considering all the new variants coming out, and all types of people are reporting on it, and there's also been a lot of suppression. So I don't know, it's really weird when stuff gets suppressed. There usually is something there. Suppression speaks volume. I was gonna say, considering the trial and tribulations you face for ultimately trying to bring human rights, peace, and justice to the world, I wanted to say thank you, and I will always remember. Has COVID-19 affected your life or your environment?
Personally, it has affected my social relationships because it has become the dominant topic now. You meet people, maybe you knew them a year ago or 2 years ago, and everybody's talking corona. Everybody has an opinion. I think that people's opinions, some of them are quite informed, some of them are not informed at all, but it has become the dominant topic of conversation. Also, it's making travel very difficult. It is my plan to return to Geneva in November of this year to present for the third time at the Biological Weapons Convention at the United Nations. But given the travel restrictions, particularly those who will not be taking the vaccine, it is less and less likely that I will be able to make that trip. And I consider that trip, given the trajectory of my work in the last number of years, considering what's happening in the world, I consider that trip absolutely certainly effective.
Yeah, definitely, man. As well as the opinions, propaganda gets weaponized, and when someone's mind is set on something, even if they're wrong, the opinionated belief system becomes a reality. I wanted to say, are the restrictions extreme in the area you're at right now?
Yeah, there's almost no restrictions where I am. We are asked to put on a mask if we go to the mall or we go to a supermarket. But other than that, there are no restrictions.
Okay. And the basic protocols is wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart, avoid crowds, and get a vaccine. What's your stance on the vaccine and the basic protocols? There's a lot of negative stuff in regards to COVID-19 from doctors, scientists, professors, virologists, etc. How do you feel about the basic protocols, and would the vaccine actually do anything?
Well, I don't know what's in this vaccine. I mean, I've looked at the ingredients, okay? And there's hexane and this and that and the other thing. Then there's something called an mRNA component. I mean, essentially that's what it's called. It doesn't tell you what it is. I'd like to know what it is. This mRNA that is experimental, that may do unpredictable things to our DNA. I'd like to know that is in the vaccine, and the full disclosure that is in the packet is not a full disclosure because it does not tell you what this mRNA component is. I mean, is it prions? There's a lot of concern about prions. In my 2014 book, Exile, I had and wrote about an experience I had in Iowa City where I met an army geneticist who had discovered that there was a prion project going on, and when he brought to the attention of his superiors that he found that these prions, and remember they cause mad cow, they cause other forms of mental disintegration, brought the results of his research to the attention of his superiors in the army. He got heavily targeted. He was told first to leave the military. We don't want you anymore. Then he was arrested for leaving the military. Then he was put into a mental hospital. Then there was this, and the poor guy ended up homeless. I mean, this is a typical targeting scenario. So my first encounter with the idea that there was a prion project, which this geneticist called, and I'm putting him directly now, he called it the planned obsolescence. Now that's a scary bunch of words, isn't it? So there are mounting concerns that this mRNA, whatever it is, may prions, because prions will have a retarded effect. You won't necessarily take the jab and feel over dead the next day. Something may happen 2 years down the line, and insistence by those in power of how imperative it is for all of us to be vaccinated for a disease that has a less than 1% case fatality rate is alarming.
Yeah, definitely, man. Targeting scenario, holy moly, man. I wanted to say negative the deaths, the negative issue. There's been a lot of talk about the deaths being inflated, and it's been from doctors, scientists, professors, virologists, civilians, social media, many different types of things, and whether some of those things were used as propaganda and whatever kind of psychological operations, and also just in just regular stuff. Could they really all be wrong? They all some of them get suppressed. Like, why are they getting suppressed, and are they really all wrong?
The numbers of deaths associated with coronavirus. First of all, in the U.S., there is a financial incentive for hospitals and doctors to report corona as a case. Okay, I believe that the hospitals get $13,000 extra patients, so there's a financial incentive there. There was also a lot of concern that there was a larger financial incentive to people on ventilators. I believe that, if I remember correctly, the CARES Act, coronavirus first bill, mandated $29,000 extra to each hospital for each ventilator patient. And it was reported that the ventilators were killing. So, we have a lot of very concerning statistics that may have financial incentives to result in related. Another signpost here, of course, is the number of flu cases and flu deaths that were reported for this last flu season. Amazingly, now those who are supporting the official narrative say, well, that's because people were wearing masks and social distancing. So, logically that doesn't work, because the mask wearing and social distancing weren't inhibiting the number of coronavirus cases. Suddenly, the flu almost disappeared. Is it possible that flu cases are counted as coronavirus? I think that is than to say that, that the masks cured flu, when they certainly didn't have that effect on the coronavirus. So, we don't know what the real reasons are.
Okay, so propaganda is definitely being used in many ways. It could be for agenda purposes, the financial incentives, etc. And considering money, and considering all the different types of psychology and the way people view life, and depending on what their job titles are, some people are more than willing. With all the complicity, treason, and espionage our world's seen from federal levels, etc. And I'm not saying all federal people are bad or everyone in the government's bad, because there's good and bad people. But when you're on a contract, a lot of people are complicit, which ultimately doesn't make them, regardless how nice you are. If the CDC found error in the vaccine, do you believe they would admit the error?
Error. They found error in the vaccine. You mean if one of the vaccines was found?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Well, we have at this point in time, I believe, the VAERS, which is attached to the CDC system, has documented 3,000 post-vaccine deaths, and it is considered that possibly 1 to 5% are actually even being reported. Okay, so how many deaths do we have? Johnson & Johnson, their vaccine has been paused. Now that's an interesting use of the word pause. They didn't say stop. They said pause, which means that that's what it generally means, because there were reported, I believe, clotting cases. Well, it's my understanding that there are far more clotting disorders associated with Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and that this number 6 is being used to placate us. Oh well, we'll check out these cases, but can't comment right now because we're pausing it. We're not stopping it. We're pausing it for 6 cases. Johnson & Johnson is not the first COVID vaccine to exhibit the results of clotting disorders, some of which have led to death. The epidemic have also done so. So there seems to be some component that is common to at least some of these vaccines, which are causing clotting death. I had prior contact for a number of issues going back to around 2011, and I was shocked by the efforts made by those officials and media representatives I was dealing with. I was shocked had their efforts to provide me with false information. This was reported in an article that I wrote in 2011. I was simply trying to find out the number of BSL 4s, that's biosafety lab level 4s in the US. The number 4s are considered to be the labs that handle the most dangerous germs there to have. They're actually coded 1 through 4, and 4s are the ones that are handling bugs that have no known cure. And the CDC was attempting to persuade me that there were, I believe, the number they gave me was 6. And I'd already done my research before entering into this interview. I had located on my own through looking at other resources, specifically, I located 60 days. And when I began to confront the CDC, the facts of, well, you know, what about this level here? What about this level here? Oh, well, we can't comment on that. So they knew about the labs. They were trying to convince, for some reason, they didn't want the true number of the labs to get out. Why? Okay, that was a lie. And they were attempting to shove that lie at me. And this is not the only experience I've had with the CDC where I found them to be dishonest and untruthful. So if they want to lie about the number of BSL 4s 10 years ago, what are they going to say about, you know, this pending crisis? Are they also going to attempt to feed the media false information? I have found that they have, in fact, and I have written articles on this, and I hope that you'll be able to share them with the listening.
100%. Also considering the media, it's some people's job, that's their title, call it manipulation, call it some kind of word, etc. But the media, people do have, there is an agenda for the media. The word agenda even itself has its own kind of connotation, but definitely there are some job titles that are involved with those kind of things. So it is very factual. Some people will not take the vaccine no matter what. There's governors, people in states, etc., that are against the vaccine. Yes, they are in federal positions and they are in government positions. What justifications would be used for a mandatory vaccination?
Well, we're seeing that justification. Well, you know, it's for the collective good, the best case scenario for more people. If you want to buy the narrative that this coronavirus is so dangerous, and at this point in time, I that there may be in the U.S. towards rolling out mandatory vaccines, although there's a court case that goes back quite some time. I think it's Jacobson versus Massachusetts. It seems to provide the framework for rolling out mandatory vaccines. Certainly get quite upset, and I think at this point in time, the government is more on platitudes and encouragement, and not so much on the force that is implied in that vaccines.
On the mandatory vaccination protocol, it would have to get pretty wild. Such a wild scenario. Who do you think would be responsible for trying to push the mandatory vaccination, if it were to happen?
Well, that's a very deep question.
Yeah.
It goes into like, who is that man behind the curtain? right? And you know, we obviously have a cooperation between many local leaders that nations, many nations. But you know, who was that masked man? You know, who the heck is behind all this? Religious people have one answer. I think political people tend to posit the same answer with different words. So, you know, can't comment really. There's something wicked this way has come.
Facts, man. Very intricate question. I had to ask it though. But as far as COVID-19, that's pretty much rounds up the interview. There's a lot of other stuff I wanted to ask you, but a little too.
Oh, but I want to say some more things.
Oh yeah.
May I?
Yeah, I was gonna
Okay.
say I will be attaching a link to this video 100%. I'm very grateful for you. Yeah, is there anything else you want to add?
I definitely do. Vaccines comprise one level of concern, but there are two others I've written about quite a bit, and which also I discussed in my local published book. So there's actually a triangulation of possible attack. Possible. The one may consist of this vaccine, this hidden mRNA component that we don't know what it is. It's experimental, it's not FDA approved, but everybody's lining up for it. Okay, that's one. That's one. The second issue of concern is the possibility that the deployment of the double-line water system during a lockdown. Because if you have people locked down to the extent that they're really not going to be able to leave their homes, they will more than likely be exposed to pretty much almost exclusively to the water coming into their house. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, given the ubiquitous nature of the double-line water system in the US and now in other US allied countries, this is a big problem. Now, for those who do not know what I am talking about when I say double-line water system, I am going to rely on my host here to provide is what I am documenting here amounts to the weaponization of the water system in the sense that it can be a selective delivery system for whatever is in the second line. And the movements are clear. The work is irrefutable. I get no Snopes negative fact check on these articles because the work is solid. So that is number two. And number three of the possible triangulation of attack refers to what we're calling the imposter pharmaceuticals, which it has been known for a number of years that certainly KGB and also the CIA had some stash of poison that looks like your antibiotic or your hormone or your whatever it is you take throughout the tummy when you spot, but it will in fact cause death. And I have in my possession some samples of these imposter pharmaceuticals. They exist. They are being distributed now. We do believe that many people in nursing homes are being given the imposter pharmaceuticals and it's dying. So we have the possibility, potential now, for these distributed without informed consent or knowledge of the subject and the result. So this apparently started under the KGB, but it looks like US has picked up the program too.
Yeah, you mentioned the CIA. I wanted to say I've read a lot about the CIA. There is so much illegal stuff, so much bad stuff that's came from that, or that entity, that agency, whatever people want to call it. That's been completely against our country. Some of the sickest stuff I've ever read, man. And as well as selectivity, the selectivity of information that gets used to people, and how people get manipulated with their brain with information, and only hear so much, as well as technology, whether technology can influence the brain or technology can influence people in many, many weird ways. Yeah, I want to say thank you for that, because it's something that a lot of people really do need to look into, and it's not like more information's out there for the entire universe. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me on and discussing these issues. And I want to, simply.
Anytime, Janet, yeah, you're one of my heroes, man. I respect you so much. You have no idea.
That is so nice to hear. I want to say, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not qualified to pass a judgment on this vaccine, but I know a double-blind water system when I see one. Anybody else with a fourth grade education can look at those blueprints and see exactly what's going on.
And so people who are qualified have definitely
yes, they have.
They've given their input. So it's like it speaks volume, man. I personally feel not all of them can be wrong. Every single one, are you really just gonna listen to I mean, some people's job is to lie. That's literally their job. So like what the I don't even like to use the word mainstream either, but when you type in COVID and stuff, etc., you're gonna get nothing but I mean, whatever the AI algorithms on there, etc., or if it's AI or not, yeah, it speaks for itself.
Well, we're doing what we can to present the issues as clearly as possible for those who are on the fence. And, I appreciate your efforts here as well. Thank you again for having me on the show.
Thank you, Janet. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. God bless.